newspaper was struggling or stable when Alden bought it, the vicious playbook was the same. As of 2019, Alden was running over 100 newspapers, and they'd cut 2 of every 3 jobs. It's a model known as vulture capitalism, though a former Chicago Tribune reporter who'd seen Alden's impact firsthand told Coppins the name didn't quite fit. A vulture doesn't hold a wounded animal's head underwater. This is predatory. The predators have come for online news, too. Gawker Media is a classic example. First undermined by Peter Thiel's vindictive, opportunistic funding of the lawsuit that would bankrupt the company. After a few years owned by Univision, the group of websites now called Gizmodo Media Group was sold to private equity firm Great Hill Partners. Megan Greenwell was editor-in-chief of Deadspin, GMG's sports and culture website. In 2019, upon her resignation, she wrote, "A metastasizing swath of media is controlled by private equity vultures and capricious billionaires. Newspapers and magazines have been reduced to figures on a spreadsheet. A business is a business. That part's not new. But the men who run Alden Global Capital never even pretend to care about journalism." When they bought the Chicago Tribune in 2021, Coppins writes, "The new owners did not fly to Chicago to address the staff, nor did they bother with peons to the vital civic role of journalism. Instead, they gutted the place." Greenwell wrote of GMG's owners, "They want a quick cash out rather than the growth that comes from a well-run business." It's impossible to know how much science writing has been lost at the hundreds of local papers now owned by financial firms, by Alden, and those aping their mercenary model. But here's some of what we do know. 2023 was a bloodbath year for science journalism. National Geographic, owned by Disney, laid off its last staff writers. Gizmodo laid off its last climate writer, so we know what Great Hill Partners did there. CNBC disbanded its climate desk, and Wired laid off around 20 employees. According to SFGate, the Wired layoffs hit reporters who covered labor, health, artificial intelligence, space, and science, and had written about such topics as AI regulation, auto worker organizing, new vaccine developments, and more. Several editors also received pink slips, including those in the features and science divisions. Writers, editors, production staff, gone. And with perhaps the most dramatic sign of the state of the industry, Popular Science, which had just celebrated its 150th anniversary in 2022, ceased publication. Popular Science was bought by the private equity firm Recurrent Ventures in 2021. I grew up reading science magazines. My grandfather subscribed to Scientific American, and I pored over the small print and elegant diagrams trying to access the rarefied knowledge I knew they held. I subscribed myself to Discover, a more accessible but just as expansive and exciting magazine. But, as Sabrina Imbler writes in Defector, the loss of Popular Science also means one less major publication where emerging science journalists can learn the craft and build their careers. Mid-career writers lost an outlet paying decent rates, and new writers lost an internship opportunity. And a former social media editor at Popular Science who was laid off amid the closure told Imbler, scientists lost a prominent venue to have their work featured. Where are the scientists going to get public investment in their research? I grew up reading science magazines because I loved the world and its wonder. But science is much more than awe. Imbler writes, "Science journalism has arguably never been more important, as the harsh impacts of climate change are hitting the planet faster than many scientists expected, and the biodiversity crisis threatens all corners of life on Earth. Climate change, pandemics, reproductive rights? There is no untangling science from the urgent issues in our lives. There is also, though, still the ineffable value of art."